told them I was on a call, so hopefully they don't do anything.
So I guess that'll jump into our first start. And obviously, so you're the assistant at Northwestern, graduated in 18, and obviously going through some difficult times here with this. How has it been sort of working from home and sort of, I guess, communicating with your teammates through Zoom or whatnot?
Yeah, so, I mean, I really can't complain. I'm very lucky that something my family's been saying a lot, I've been saying a lot is like, it's one thing to love your family, but during this time you have to like them. And I'm very fortunate that I really like spending time with my family. My mom and dad, and I have an older brother that's 2 years older than me. So it's been really nice. And honestly, like during my time in college, and you guys know, you're kind of in that bubble, you know, and you're in your team bubble and wherever you are. And I didn't realize how long it's been since even my brother too and I, you know, are under the same roof. So I definitely have not taken it for granted. I miss being at Northwestern, and I miss that for sure. And I miss those girls and my coaching staff that I work with there. But it has been nice being home. And like I said, my workspace is the kitchen table, so that comes with some of it being tough with people constantly walking through. But we're making do, and you know, I can't complain. Like I said, super fortunate to be around my family, and you know, you can put your head down. And you guys also know that from being a collegiate athlete, you are in a house living with a ton of people at times, so you naturally will have some distractions, but you get what you need to done.
What's been the word from Northwestern about like getting back to school in the fall so far? I feel like
I mean, it's, you know, it's the same as kind of everywhere else. It's phasing is happening, and but they're hopeful that the students will definitely be back, and just kind of how that looks is up in the air right now. And they have plan A through Z, just like everyone else, just like every other school out there. But you know, we're prepared for anything, and it may look a lot different, but I just can't wait to be back together, honestly.
100%.
Yeah.
I guess, so you're living with your family now. Is sort of lacrosse in your blood at all? Did your parents play at all? Did your brother play? How did that start?
Yeah, so my dad played. He played in high school. He played at post. My mom, there wasn't really like a lot of sports for females around that time, but she played soccer with the guys team a ton. I would say I definitely probably get my athletic genes more from my dad. My mom may argue on that, but I would need to see video to believe that for sure. But yeah, my older brother played. He played at Washington and Jefferson, which is a school in Pennsylvania. But I mean, just my brother's crazy athletic, and I grew up just basically being his shadow. So that was everything of my childhood is tied to my brother. So yes, I guess you could say it's in my blood, but also just being from Long Island, that is in itself, you're kind of fully immersed in it all the time. So that also played a big role.
Yeah, definitely.
What would you say? Oh, Connor, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just talking to Lauren a little bit, and she was telling me, so you're a really good soccer player as well. Did you play multiple sports growing up? Or?
Yeah. So I played soccer was my other like really intense sport. I would say, I mean, up until like senior year, I was honestly, well, more like probably junior year, was planning to play soccer as well in college. And even prior to that, I was definitely like always up in the air about which one I liked better. Whichever one I was playing in the moment was the one I liked more. Right. People would always ask me that, and it was whatever one I was going to practice to that night. So it constantly changed. I played for the U15 national team for soccer, which was really cool. We went to this like 100-person tryout in Portland, Oregon, and from there they picked, I think it was like a 20-person roster. So that was pretty cool. That was something I definitely was not expecting. I remember when my parents told me that, I was like, what? Out of the people that were there, it was pretty crazy to hear that. So I dedicated a lot of time to soccer, but I played everything growing up. Like I said, my brother and it was basically the Olympics every single day out in my backyard. So we were always competing, always going against each other. I was always crying because I would always lose.
Made you tougher.
Exactly. I also, sidebar, for a while, both my parents were working, and my brother and I, each day we'd go to, we called her Miss Kathy, and she also had 2 boys that were older than me. So for like 3 or 4 years this is when I was like young too. So for like 3 or 4 years of my childhood, I remember it was almost like having 3 older brothers, and those 2 were a lot even tougher on me than my brother. So I was definitely needed to learn how to fend for myself a bit with those guys.
That's awesome. So what was the deciding factor between soccer and lacrosse?
I think it ultimately came down to, for me, I remember there was a big turning point. I started playing on Long Island Top Guns, and I had a coach, Shannon Smith, who she now coaches at Hofstra. She went to Northwestern. I just, for the first time, I kind of began watching lacrosse a lot, and I started going to, those Final Fours and things like that. And I got to, develop, she was a big mentor of mine while I was playing for them. And, I think I just, for the first time, could kind of see myself living out that dream. And I completely fell in love with the idea of that, and the idea to chase something like that. And so that was around like 10th or probably 11th grade when I was like, it didn't really come down to which one I loved more. It was like, which one can I not lose? And it was lacrosse, and I completely stand by that decision. It was one of the best decisions of my life. And it's just crazy because one dream can take you down a crazy road. And a large testament to that was to Shannon and to her ability to kind of light a fire in me and kind of, or more so reveal that fire within myself for lacrosse that I hadn't previously had, because I played for Babylon High School, which we were a really small school, Class C. And we were against the big dogs like Mount Sinai and Shoreham and those guys. And while those were great competition in high school, we were a really small school. So it wasn't, amazing competition every day. Love those girls to death, insanely hard workers, but they know that. But I think that for the first time, someone was really pushing me and demanding more out of me, which then also made me want more out of myself.
I love that. That's awesome.
What would you say? So from going from so now you're coaching at Northwestern. What do you think? Why do you think you kind of got the opportunity to, obviously right out of school? It's tough obviously that's an amazing position to be coaching at. Why do you think you kind of got the opportunity from playing at Northwestern to being able to be an assistant coach there pretty early, obviously just right out of school? I mean, that's obviously an amazing opportunity. What do you think?
Yeah.
Why do you think you got that opportunity?
I mean, I think Kelly she just believes in me. I think that she knows how passionate I am about the game, and being passionate about the sport of lacrosse and everything that Northwestern stands for is, I think probably the biggest core value of being a part of the program. And I'm as passionate about it as they come. I work really hard That's definitely for me, just my work ethic, I think, is something that is very consistent, and I pour my heart and soul into it, and it means so much to me that Kelly would believe in me and really trust me enough to come on and just share her message and help, build this program back up to where we want it to be. And also to be able to be a part of the girls' lives that are on the team, just because they are incredible people. And, but I think that those two things are the biggest thing. My passion and my work ethic, I think, are probably the two biggest things that kind of helped me get an opportunity to coach at Northwestern.
Right. You talk about your passion for the game. Was it almost immediately after you graduated, or before that you're like, I want to come back and coach, or how did that sort of start?
I think I've always had it in my head that I wanted to continue to be a part of the game. I wanted to coach. I knew that, I wanted, whatever I do, I want to do it at the highest level possible. And so that was in any field. And then naturally, so after my senior year, I had the opportunity to get a master's degree from Northwestern in sports administration, which, I just had friends that went through the program and that are coaches now, that they were just saying that it helped them immensely in their career path. And so I was like, all right, that's awesome. I can do that. I can stay on. I was a volunteer coach first. So I was a volunteer coach while I was getting my master's. And then it was this past year where it was like my second year out where I was asked to join the staff. So I think that I wasn't necessarily like 100, I didn't know that this opportunity was going to be presented to me after I was done being a volunteer coach. So that's not something that I was like anticipating, or I was like, I'm doing this so that I can be a coach at Northwestern. It was more so my mentality was just, to, just like I did when I was a player, give my heart and soul to that team, and every day show up to work and show up to practice with the intention to make those girls better and, get the best out of them, each and every single person individually, and then enjoy that, see how I enjoy it. Even if I don't enjoy it, like maybe I won't like it. I don't know. I've never been a coach before. So I kind of just went in with a really open mind, and I just wanted to learn. And I think like you guys can probably attest to, when you're no longer playing anymore, it's a lot different. You're viewing it from the sidelines. And that year we made a run to the Final Four, and that was an incredible experience. And I got to feel what it feels like to want something for people more than you want it for yourself. Like even want something for people, and like you're going to get no glory for it, which I had never really experienced, because in my time at Northwestern, I was on the field. So if you win, you do get the glory,
Right.
You do kind of get the like name and lights type thing. But I got a completely different perspective in coaching, and I was, I wasn't going to be named at all. My name wasn't going to be mentioned when and if we won, or even, on the road to the Final Four. And I realized, oh my God, I still love this with all my heart. And I don't care about that at all. So I think after that season, like I said, had an open mind during the season to like it or not. I was finding that I was more bought in than ever. And then at the end of the season, I was just like, this is so for me. I love this so much. And like I said, I had no expectation to be brought on or anything. At the time, there wasn't even an opening. So I was kind of just hoping that, I would land elsewhere and would be able to have the opportunity to, give my heart and soul to somewhere else. Because I was fully actually ready to move on from Northwestern. I felt like I had given everything I had in my 5 years there, and I was definitely ready. And then next thing I know, Kelly was calling and asking me and giving me the opportunity to stay. And of course, I didn't even blink an eye. I was all in from the second she asked. So I'm definitely grateful for the opportunity she's presented, and I kind of am just going to continue that going forward. No expectation, and just continue to kind of put my head down and pour my heart and soul into it.
That's awesome. I love that.
So a lot of success through your career, kind of from personally to obviously coaching other people and stuff like that. Is there anything looking back at your career that kind of helped lead to that success? Any like failures that kind of stick out to you and really help drive you? Like you said, you were always very highly achieving and stuff like that, but is there anything that sticks out as far as failures that really kind of changed things for you and kind of helped lead to some type of later success in athletics or life? Just something that sticks out looking back.
Yeah. Honestly, I can't think of one because if you've looked at, what transpired in my 4 years at Northwestern, there were a lot of quote unquote failures. There was a lot of losing going on. And that was heartbreaking, so not one stands out as like the failure or the, coming up short that made me who I am, or that made me, change my mentality or my approach. But I just think what I learned was, so just a brief story. I was thinking about this when I kind of read this question. When I remember being in like maybe I think it was my junior year of high school. We had lost to Shoreham again in the playoffs. And I just remember I tore my ACL in 9th grade. And I just remember after that game, I was like sobbing in my room. Like I was sitting on my bed and my mom was sitting on my bed with me, and we were just talking, barely talking, but I was sobbing. And I was just like, and I remember vividly saying, what if I never win? And like, I remember just like tears coming down, being psychotic. But I remember those words saying, what if I never win? What if I never win? And I think that was when I just remember like how much it hurt me whenever I lost. Like you just never get used to it. And it's because you pour your heart and soul into it. And I remember being like, why does this person who I know I know I give more than her. I know that I'm sacrificing more. I know I'm working harder. I know that this person is not outworking me, and they get to be on that team that wins the Long Island Championship, or they get to be, they get to win, and I was just like, I just remember feeling like, no one worked harder. It wasn't fair that people got to win that didn't work hard or that didn't work as hard as I was. And, if I could go back, I just remember, and when I think about my time at Northwestern, I think of that, like that actually happened. Like we didn't win a national championship. And I think back to that question, and it's just so clear that like, it's so worth it. It's still worth it, and something that I always think about is something our strength coach said to us was, don't seek happiness, seek fulfillment. And that's something that I feel like I really developed the understanding of at my time at Northwestern was, my favorite part of the day is walking up to practice, up to Lakeside, and the sun rising at 6 a.m. and getting to experience that with my teammates. And it became those little moments that made everything worth it. And you can obviously say like when you lose that winning isn't everything, but it's those moments and those going through that adversity and those losses and that hardship with your team that really bonds you together and really, kind of puts you sometimes in dark holes personally. Like I just remember the amount of like how often I had to look in the mirror and be like, this is not enough. Like what you're giving is not enough. And I think that ability to, look in the mirror day in and day out after failure after failure, and after coming up short time and time again, it just makes you a stronger person, and it makes you so much more appreciative of those little moments. And, it's easy. It's just like hopping on a bandwagon team. It's easy to be happy, and it's easy to feel good about yourself when everything's going well and when you're winning. But when you go through that, it's a lot harder to feel that fulfillment and feel that happiness. So you get that fulfillment from doing the little things right, and from just, the blood, sweat, and tears that you pour into it every day. So I can't give one thing that kind of made me who I am, or, a loss that kind of changed my mentality. But I just think that, you learn how to demand more of yourself every single day. And now I've realized that probably even if I did win, or even when I win now, that's something that's just ingrained in me, is to not take it for granted and enjoy it. And, still be able to realize that there's always going to be another mountain. Even when you climb the one you're on, you don't really get to rest. You hopefully will seek out the next mountain to climb, and you'll never be okay with falling face first, but you fall face first forward. And that's kind of the main thing that I learned.
Anything you wish you could have done differently, like looking back, whether it be before you got to Northwestern that could have helped you prepare better, or at Northwestern, just hindsight 2020, obviously you can't change it, but anything that sticks out that you either wish you would have added sooner or subtracted from what you were doing sooner, just anything, if you could kind of put yourself back into shoes approaching college and stuff like that, anything that sticks out that you wish you could have changed sooner, anything you kind of would do the same, do differently?
Yeah. Like you said, hindsight 2020, it's always, you think of things that maybe you could have done.
It's a scary thing.
But the thing is, it's funny because when I think about this question, I've had so many amazing people and so much just amazing guidance in my life that everything I could think of, people told me, so it's yes, I could go back and tell myself, but I guess the real thing I would tell myself is just to listen to them and believe them. But I guess, the one thing that I would have done a little differently, or that I guess I would tell myself, is just to be true to yourself, and to be true to who you are, and understand that, you aren't meant to be like X person, or you aren't meant to be like this person. And I think that that's really hard to do when you're going into your freshman year, or when you're young. You get caught up in, well, this person is, this person's sick, this person's crazy fit, this person runs a 5-minute mile. Why can't I run a 5-minute mile? Or things like that. And you kind of compare yourself to other people. And that can get you off track to what you need to do personally, that's going to help, the type of athlete you are, reach your full potential. And I think in the beginning I was chasing that a lot. I was trying to be an athlete that I wasn't, because I felt like that's what I needed to be. Meanwhile, if I just, was willing to look in the mirror, evaluate where my strengths and weaknesses were as myself, and not base it off of someone else, then that probably would have given me a lot better compass on where to start, and, how to approach, my workouts, and how to approach training and different things like that. So I think that ultimately would have helped me a lot, from that fitness, physical standpoint, for sure, as opposed to always trying to be like someone else, and then not measuring up, and then feeling bad about yourself about it, and then it kind of going into this downward cycle of lacking confidence.
When did you kind of start figuring that stuff out? When did you start kind of realizing okay, if I just look in the mirror and just look at, as long as I beat who I was yesterday, kind of just not worry about other people? When did that kind of click for you?
I think that clicked for me around my junior year. I just realized that what I was doing wasn't working. Like, and I was like, I got to the point where I was like, I'm better than this. I'm better than what my mentality was there, in the sense of like, you know, I was working crazy hard, but I wasn't working smart. Like, I wasn't evaluating, like I said before, just like what I needed to do, the proper things I needed to do, not what this person needs to do to get whatever it was on the fitness test, and what I need to do to like be like that person, but what do I need to do to be in my best physical shape and to be in my best mental shape. And I think it got to a point where I was like, it's what I'm doing right now isn't working and I'm running out of time here. Yeah. So I'm going to take a chance on myself, and I'm going to do what I feel is best for my body and do what I feel is best for me. And it was then when I started, you know, my workouts would look a little different from, you know, my best friend who lives in West Islip. Her name is Lindsay Darrell. She's like a thoroughbred, you know, like truck that you would drive cross country in, you know, and I'm more like a Corvette. So like, that's kind of how I started thinking about it. Cause I used to be like, oh, I'm not, you know, I'm just not, like I'm not as good as her at that. But the reality is we were just different. She hadn't had 2 knee surgeries like I did in high school. I had a knee surgery in 9th grade and then a knee surgery senior year. So I was, you know, trying to be something that my body at that point in time, like it wasn't there. So although my workouts looked a little different from hers, and I was pulling sleds and I was, you know, doing things like that and not going on 5-mile runs like she was, I soon realized that I was feeling better and I was, you know, getting leaner and I was getting faster and everything like that. And then that just builds on your confidence and, you know, then obviously your performance is just improving and you're you start to trust yourself and you start to trust your judgment and trust your body. And naturally, you know, my body was feeling even better than it was. And from there, I think that's kind of where I realized, like, you know, it's not wrong to kind of take a chance on yourself and to learn from your experiences and to kind of different path that you may think, oh, like it's not as hard as, you know, running 3 miles. Like, hell yeah, it was so hard. You know, it was a different hard, but it was so hard and it was good for me. And I think that just having the confidence in that and trusting that, and ultimately getting the results I wanted. Like I became so much fitter, you know, and that helped a ton on the lacrosse field, and that made everything easier on the field. So that was something that I learned pretty late in the game that I wish I did a little sooner, but you know, it's something that I also did because something didn't work. So, you know, sometimes the wrong things need to steer you towards the right things.
So how did you talk about just a little bit, like, so we want to like maybe just a little bit for more people or like kids, and I think like you hit the nail right on the head. It's like everybody's different and everybody has different paths, and as an athlete you go through different types of workouts and like, oh, this works for me, this doesn't work for me. I guess in terms of like specifics, how did you change from not being that sort of Mack truck cross country to that Corvette? How did you sort of figure out, and what type of workouts has led you to be successful? Because you have that Shelby Fit page. Mm-hmm. And I love it. I went through that. It was a lot of great stuff. So what type of workouts do you do specifically for yourself?
Thank you. So in high school, I had a really great trainer. His name was Ben Velasquez, and he taught me a ton about like proprioception and just how, you know, neurology plays a huge role in your knee health. For me specifically, it was my knee health, and how that plays a role in your balance, and how that plays a role in just proprioception is essentially knowing where you are in time and space and how you move and things like that. And I learned a ton from him. But I also learned just in general, just discipline. And I think when I realized that maybe I wasn't meant to be, a truck that you're able to drive cross country in and more of a Corvette, I realized that, it wasn't just in the physical stuff. Like a lot of people want to believe, like I remember a ton of people would ask me like, what are you doing? What workouts are you doing? Or even now they're like, so give me workouts to do. And it's like, that is a big part of it. But also just the discipline of nutrition. And I think that it took me a long time to also understand the value of, if you put bad stuff in, you're going to get bad stuff out, So I completely changed that aspect too, which in large part, it takes even more self-discipline. Like for me, it's fun to go out and do hard things physically, but when you want the bad stuff after that like to eat, that can kind of be the part that you see. Like a lot of people will be like, oh, I put in the work, like I can do this because I did that. But it became, I want to fuel my body. Like it's, how would you fuel your body if you had no emotions and if you had no feelings and how would you fuel your body if it was a machine, and it was a machine built to move fast, and it was a machine built to lift heavy and all those things, and be quick? How would you fuel it in that sense? And as humans, we have these feelings and we have these wants and desires, but it was that ability to kind of realize that I needed to decide what I wanted most from what I wanted now, and in the moment. And when you can kind of prioritize what you want most over what you want in the moment, you can treat your body a little bit more as that machine and a little bit less like a human with feelings and, emotions that can drive you to want these things that aren't the best for you. So that was a huge turning point.
What are your staples in your diet and your nutrition? Like, what are your go-to just staples in it?
My staples. Oh, I basically eat the same thing every day. So, it's pretty easy to say. For breakfast, I have coffee. I usually don't have breakfast I usually have my coffee at like 8:15, and then that usually holds me over till breakfast at like 9:30, 10, and then I'll have my smoothie, which I have 000 Chobani yogurt, so good, black cherry, a banana, some protein powder, tons of spinach in there, blueberries, and like 3 strawberries or so, and then I just load it up with water. Have that for breakfast. Lunch is usually the most random thing in the world. But it's usually like an apple and some type of protein, or a salad with protein. I'm a big kale and spinach girl, so I have that. But I usually get pretty creative. My lunches are kind of weird. It's sometimes whatever's in the fridge, I just throw stuff together and mix it. And then dinner, I've actually been a lot more fortunate while I'm home. My dinners are definitely better than when I'm in Chicago. My dinners when I'm away and I have to cook for myself every night and I'm saving money to the max, it's usually like ground chicken, vegetables, and like rice or something. But I really don't have I usually get my carbs a lot from vegetables. I don't eat bread. I kind of don't really eat gluten. Not that it's really bad for you. I know it's like scientifically proven it's not bad for you, but it's just a thing. My mom's gluten-free, so that's kind of something I inherit when I'm home. And I'm not a huge fan of like rice and things like that. So I get a lot of my carbs from vegetables and everything like that. So, yeah, that's kind of, I'm pretty boring when it comes to food, but I am a sucker for ice cream, so that's my biggest weakness, I must say.
When did that start in terms of just acknowledging what you're putting into your body?
It definitely that like to the extent it is now, it was post college. In college, I mean, you're practicing so much, like there's so much energy being spent that you need to naturally like eat more and fuel your body more because you're expending so much energy. So I didn't really focus on like, you know, now I focus a lot on getting my macros and things like that. But in college, it was more so like, you know, generally my mentality was just like eat clean. I really stayed away from, like, I never bought anything in a bag, really, like cookies, chips. Like I stayed away from all that stuff. Easiest way to stay away from it was always just not buying it. And then for the most part, for everything else, I was kind of just eat clean, you know, have lean meats, make sure you're getting protein, make sure you're eating vegetables. I never had an issue with that. And I love fruit. So that was kind of, and fruit is where I get a lot of carbs from, but that was kind of my mentality there. But I wasn't as like intense with how much I was eating of it. I definitely learned that the portion control aspect of it in college in my later years, because I never really ate bad. Like it was more so in the earlier years, I was eating good, but I was just eating a lot more. Shout out to the dining halls. But in my later years, I kind of learned a little bit more about portion control, but I got a lot less. It's funny, like in my freshman and sophomore year, like I definitely paid more attention to food, which I feel like in a sense kind of had a negative effect on me because it was like always on my mind in an unhealthy way. Whereas, you know, my junior and senior year, I just shifted my mindset to thinking of it more like fuel and listening to my body. And you have people telling you, you know, like you have to eat this, you should be having pasta before games and chicken parm before games and things like that. And that was another thing where I learned, I was like, this isn't working for me. Like this might be working for this person, but this isn't working for me. So that was just another sense where like I just shifted a little bit of just my actions and how I kind of perceived food. And just because people were telling me, you know, that you needed this like carbo load, I just was like, simply not working for me. Let me try something else. And I realized that it did work. So that was kind of, you know, it fed into me feeling more confident in making my decisions with food.
Yeah. So like, focused on food, obviously it's huge as an athlete. And then you're very aware of what workouts you do. So in order to narrow that down and maybe specifically, if you, like, we like to ask this question, but if you had 4 hours a week and you play in the WPLL, you play as well as coach, if you had 4 hours a week to train, play lacrosse, how would you spend it?
Okay, so the question is, if I had 4 hours a week to train and play lacrosse
and get ready for lacrosse, how would you spend that time to get ready for a game that weekend? Or so how would you spend that week with 4 hours?
So I have 4 hours. So I think a huge part of something that's helped me is making sure that I'm prioritizing the strength component. So making sure that I do get some type of, you know, you're applying force, you're moving an object. So if I only had 4 hours though, I would want to also maximize the functionality of it. So, you know, I may not go for a long run because, you know, that's going to take up a lot of time, but if I want to get my heart rate up and I want to kind of get that strength component as well, what I would probably do is do some type of thing where I'm doing a workout where I'm pushing a sled, pulling a sled, whatever that looks like. But then also within that, kind of structuring it where I'm doing that, and then I'm, you know, maybe doing a lacrosse shooting drill, dodging drill within that, and making sure I'm getting a shot off, so that you're kind of getting a little bit of everything, right? A lot of people also will want to like go shoot and their heart rate will be at like 113, like they're just hanging out. But when you're playing a game, you obviously need to be able to execute with your heart rate spiked and, you know, being tired and things like that. So I would definitely just kind of, I love getting creative with my workouts. That's something that has been fun since college, because in college you have that such structure. And since then I've kind of been able to have more freedom and kind of program myself and things like that. So I'd probably create some type of circuit where, you know, I'm pulling a sled, doing even doing like a rower or an assault bike to spike my heart rate up, and then, you know, doing some type of footwork with my stick. But ultimately just having my stick, incorporating my stick as much as possible. And when you can do it when you're tired, when you're doing an assault bike and then you go from that to playing in a game, you're going to feel a lot less tired in the game for sure. So you'll definitely be able to execute on your shots a bit better and things like that.
So you believe it's like a 50-50 split almost in terms of?
Yeah. I think it's a 50-50 split. But I do think, I think that as much as I could, I would incorporate them together. And I would do things, you know, not really stagnant. Like wall ball is great, but there's a lot of ways to make wall ball dynamic and to be moving your feet at the same time. Because I know, I mean, I've had times since I've been in college where I'm like, you know, going into a game and say you don't play in college, you're playing every single day. So after college, like you're going into a game and maybe you only played 3 times that week. Like, and you're kind of feeling like your upper body and your stick are not really in sync with your feet and your legs, which is kind of a weird feeling when you go from playing every single day. And, you know, having all of that preparation. So that is something where, you know, you do need to just have that focus on making sure that you're moving in a way that is reflecting how you're going to move in the game, so that when you make those movements, you're ready.
I have a question. So you mentioned obviously you'd want to incorporate some type of like shooting drill and something in there, but like looking at your bio, it looked like you were pretty good at taking the draw through college and in your career. How do you, like, obviously I've never taken a women's lacrosse draw in my life, but like, how do you work on, like, what makes you so successful with that? Like, why do you think you're so good at that? And kind of what have you done to get so good at that, honestly? If you're,
I've been very fortunate when I think of that question, the people that I've had the opportunity to work with are, I mean, huge percentage of why I was able to have success. My teammates, of course, but also the coaches that I got to work with. Danielle Spencer was one. She was a huge influence on me. She was there for my freshman and sophomore year. And she, I mean, I don't know if you know Danielle Spencer, but she's like 8 feet tall. And she's just a beast. And we would be for like 30, 40 minutes after practice every day, just like going at each other. We wouldn't even talk. Like, I remember there were days where we would be taking draws and Tim, the other assistant coach, he would be whistling and like no one would be speaking, and she would be getting angry. I would be getting angry when I lost, still no conversing happening. And it was just straight up competing against each other. And I just remember there were days where like after 40 minutes, she'd look at me and be like, "You good?" And I was just like, "Yep." And then we just walk away. And like we would go home, like both of us pissed because we competed so hard. So I think that's really set up the precedent for me for what it means to be, you know, the draw taker at Northwestern. I came in right after Alyssa Leonard left, who Alyssa was like, she basically like invented the self draw. She was amazing. and I watched her obviously when I was in high school, and I knew that I knew I wasn't going to fill those shoes. Like just straight up freshman year, like I wasn't like trying to fill her shoes. I knew that wasn't attainable. I was just trying to be the best I could be for the team in that moment and just be a sponge and learn as much as I could. But the work ethic that Danielle Spencer and Kelly just kind of presented me with was definitely set the standard for the rest of my time at Northwestern. And not only me, there were draw teams every year at Northwestern. So we'd have like 6-7 girls that would stay after. And then, as the season went on, as there would be, only 3 or 2 girls that would stay after. But that would stay after for that long. And it became something that they didn't tell us that we needed to do that. It became the standard. This is what you do. This is the amount of focus and the amount of just hard work that you put into this position. And that kind of just became how it was. But yeah, Kelly and Danielle were huge in just my understanding of what it would take to be good at the draw. And then I was even lucky my junior and senior year, I had Hannah Murphy, who is now the assistant coach at UMass. In her senior year, she was the #1 draw person in the country. So I've had the opportunity to learn from just the best of the best, and the work is you can't have any substitution for it. A lot of even training girls now, parents want the magic formula that's gonna make it work. And as much as there's a technique, and as much as there's those things, nothing substitutes for just plain hard reps. And I stand by that with my whole being, that no stick work routine, no one-handed wrist work is going to be as good as reps that are high quality and high focused reps. So that is kind of my answer there. It's just putting in the work day in and day out, and especially on the days where you don't feel like it.
Yeah, that's what I was like, just me being like naive and stupid, like just like watching girls lacrosse, like that's like the biggest thing. I'm just like, I don't understand like what separates like the best girls like at taking a draw from like for the girls who aren't, like some girls are just dominant, and I just don't understand like what the key to success is there with like taking.
Yeah, it's it's obviously the hard work it's everything, but I think that there is that technique, which I'm not sure either of you will understand. It's not my place to share that on here, but there is the best people at the draw have very specific techniques that they use, and everyone has their own subtle things regarding those, within those skills. But it's a constant learning process, because by the time you make the adjustment for the next draw, that person's probably adjusted too. So the more you can take, and the more you can just continue to understand how to combat different things, and ultimately have the confidence and trust with your teammates, because the circle girls are huge too. So the girls that are on the outside, they obviously play a huge role as well. I didn't even mention them, but I had some amazing circle girls in my career over my 4 years as well. And they're, every single win goes to them, because they were the ones that were taking hits and boxing out their girls, protecting me.
So I do want to drive home that point of just like every kid should know, like there is no magic formula. And it's like, I always teach, it's like, it's really about reps. Like it might not look good now, but if you continue to do it, it's going to get better and better. And just that whole point of, you learn so much in college, and you talked about it being a culture and sort of like core value of like, you do extra work. Was it in high school? Like obviously the all-time leader in Northwestern, every girl sees you as this great draw person. So did you develop it in high school and then just absolutely specialize it more in college, or how did you sort of
the draw specifically?
Yeah, just sort of how do you just continue to get better? Did it start or was it your people?
No, I took the draw occasionally in high school, but it wasn't a thing. Like, it wasn't how it is now, how it is thought about now. Like, there are high schoolers that specialize it and like can go to themselves and do all this crazy stuff. But that wasn't how it was when I was in high school. No one really did that, I don't think. Like I said, Alyssa Leonard was like a huge start of that when she was at Northwestern, but no one was really like, you know, there were no dads and high school coaches that could teach that. So that wasn't really a thing at all. But the reason why I was put on the draw and why most, you know, usually it was like, you know, the top 3 people that had semi-good athleticism, they took the draw. Yeah. And that was kind of the main reason why I did sometimes for my high school. But when I got to Northwestern, I didn't go in thinking I would take the draw at all. I just went in with an open mind, and just everything I did, I just wanted to, you know, work as hard as I possibly could, learn as much as I could, be a sponge to the coaching staff and be a sponge to the older players that were just amazing and took me under their wing and taught me so much. But I remember the first day that Spence and Kelly took me into Patton Gym, which anyone from Northwestern will know what that is. But they took me into the dimly lit Patton Gym and started teaching me it. And, you know, I didn't even question it. I was just like, okay, this is awesome. Whatever you need. I was just, you know, I wanted to do whatever needed to be done to, you know, it wasn't about like getting on the field. It wasn't like about seeking an opportunity to get on the field. It was just whatever you obviously see something here. So like, I am so excited to, you know, get the opportunity to even just like learn this from you guys. So that was, you know, it was then where they just started honing in on all the tiny details. And after every single rep, Danielle would literally correct every rep. And it was amazing because I learned that's what you need when you're first learning. Like you can't have someone being, you know, scared to tell you every single time something changed. Every single time it was something different. I would correct what she just said and then I'd lose something else and she would correct the other thing. So, but I needed that. And I think that you need that when you're learning anything that, you know, requires a lot of focus and a lot of technique. So it didn't, to answer your question, no, it didn't start in high school. It started when I got on campus, and I don't think that they even necessarily expected or, you know, were seeing that for me. I think that they just saw that I had a pretty good stick since I had 2 knee injuries and was out for a couple seasons in high school. I had a lot of time to work on my stick work, and I think that I got really fast hands, and I think that they saw that as an opportunity.
Yeah, that's something I actually wanted to circle back and ask you about too, just because literally for me too, I did my ACL my junior and senior years of high school. So kind of, what did you do your second injury?
I did my other ACL. So I did my one in 9th grade playing soccer, and then senior year I got hit from like the side, and they took out my knee. So that's literally like one of my biggest things is kind of just like huge regret for me was like literally like the time that I didn't spend doing certain things while I was kind of recovering from my knee injuries, and obviously missing my junior and senior years of lacrosse. It like made the jump to Maryland pretty tough for me. I hadn't played like in a live lacrosse game since like my sophomore year of high school. Yep.
And obviously for you, it seems like you made a pretty good transition going into Northwestern. At least, you know, you got on the field and like you obviously ended up having a great career. How did you kind of handle those injuries? What was your splits of like how much time you were still focusing on lacrosse? Like, were you still kind of put some time into soccer at the same time? Like what was your mindset and when you were recovering from those injuries and just obviously, you know, looking back at that, if someone was in a similar spot, kind of what would you say would be the biggest focus that they should be thinking about?
I think the biggest thing mentality wise of how I approached both of those injuries was to not let what I couldn't do get in the way of what I could. And I think a lot of people, when injuries happen, when anything, bad happens sometimes in life, you tend to be like, all right, well, I can't run, or I can't go to practice anymore, or just everything. There's a million things that you can't do, and that's just the reality. But what I realized and just very early on was that, I specifically, my senior year, I remember, you lose your senior season. It's supposed to be the season that, everything comes together.
Your soccer season.
I lost my lacrosse season.
Okay.
So it's supposed to be the year everything comes together. Like I said, the previous year, remember I was crying with my mom saying, what if I never win? So I had been working so hard. And then in seconds, you lose everything. So I remember my best friend, Kayleen Hart, who ended up going to BC. She came over that night when it happened. And I remember I literally set an alarm for 20 minutes and I cried to her and I expressed how just heartbroken I was. And then when the alarm went off, I literally wiped my tears and was like, I'm good now. All right, let's go. And I think that having the mentality of just, all right, what can I do? Yes, I can't, I'm on crutches right now. I can barely walk on my own. Okay, what can I do? I have a beach chair outside that I can put in front of my net, and I have a backstop, and I have a beautiful net and a net set up behind my net so I don't hit my neighbors. All right, I have a bucket of balls. Who says you need to be standing? So kind of just finding even that, like, okay, I can't stand and shoot, but I can sit on this beach chair and I can pass this bounce back and work on catching, switching hands, and getting that quick release. And if I can do that sitting and not generating power with my legs and things like that, imagine how fast my shot's going to be when I can generate power with my legs and when I can use my torso and things like that. So I started seeing all the opportunities for growth instead of looking at it like I was being limited. And I started, yes, I didn't go to practice basically that whole season because I needed to go to PT, and it was the only time I had was during practice. So occasionally I would go, but I remember PT was often during practice time. And at that point, okay, I was going to PT and then I still was getting my lacrosse in. So I would go to PT, and then afterwards for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, I would play on my own. And I started thinking to myself, no one's doing this individual work right now. Like, people are in season. They might be practicing, but they're doing, team-oriented stuff. No one's working on their stick like I am. No one's shooting like I am. No one's, taking the amount of reps that I am. At practice, you don't get that many reps, So I just started seeing the opportunity for things. And I started realizing, I can also start honing in on my nutrition more. I can, I may not be able to lift things with my legs yet, but I can, develop insane upper body strength. I can work on my pull-ups. I can work on things like that I wouldn't be focusing on as much because I could walk and because I could do things with, my two legs. So that would be my advice, is find ways to, do the things that you can do, and do not let the things that you can't do get in the way. And try to see those things as an opportunity. And because, the reality is other people weren't doing as much as I was. I know that for a fact. And that's because during the practice time, or even if I didn't have PT, I would be in my yard for like 2 hours playing wall ball, and no one was doing that at practice. So knowing that the edge is, you can create your own edge if you have the care and the discipline enough, and also just the positive mindset to see it as that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then, so obviously that probably just helped so much with your confidence going into Northwestern and stuff like that. once you got to Northwestern, were there any like moment, like right away, did you know that you could do really well there? Or was there kind of like a breakthrough moment for you that you were like, all right, like I've had some injuries, like missed some time, but like I'm still just as good as I thought I was, or better than I thought I was, maybe, and
Yeah.
like breakthrough moments of success for you?
Yeah. I think there were definitely times where, I was like, I came out of high school like a pretty highly touted recruit. And I think there were definitely times where I was like, I'm not living up to what I was expected to, and that was in large part, I was in that spiral. Like when I got to Northwestern, I wasn't feeling good physically. I, came back probably too soon. And then, in turn, I wasn't playing great. I was playing like well enough to like start and play like that, but I wasn't feeling like myself. Mm-hmm. And then that naturally, like, you get in your own head and your confidence is lacking, which then, hurts your performance on the field. But I think when I knew that I would be successful at Northwestern there was a situation where I think like later on in the season, I was like put on scout team, which was like, if you're not going to start, we're playing on scout. And it was like earlier in the week, and, it's not a bad thing to be on scout, but I was like, all right, like this is, they didn't warn me. They didn't say, you're going to be on scout this week, just saying. I obviously didn't perform well. And then, the following Monday or Tuesday, whatever it was, when we were preparing for our next game, I was on the scout team. And I remember people, it was in that moment where I realized, and I chose to not approach practice any differently than I would as if I was a starter. And I think that was a really valuable lesson for me. And it wasn't even like, keep going to the cage, or, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like be aggressive and score all these goals. I wasn't trying to like prove anything to anyone. It was more so like, I have an opportunity right now to be a leader in my own, like even just for myself. Yeah. And I've always felt that how you react when things go wrong is so much more of a testament to who you are than when, things are going great and everything like that. And I always felt like that had so much more to say about you as a person. When things are going wrong, how do you present yourself? How do you treat other people? Am I going to get internal during this practice and like just focus on myself and me looking good and like proving that I, shouldn't be on scout? Or am I going to continue, hitting my teammates' sticks? And whether they're on scout or the other team, am I going to continue to, trash talk just like I would if I was playing on the other side, and trash talking the defense and things like that? And, also like tap them when they do something great, So I think that was a big, and that wasn't like a one-day thing. That was for like, the week. And I think that by the end of the week, I was not on it anymore. And I know for a fact that it probably wasn't a testament to like me playing lights out. It was just my ability to respond and remain true to who I was and who I wanted to be as a teammate. And I think that was why whenever my back was up against the wall at Northwestern, I was able to always come out of it in a place where, I was happy, and in a place where I felt like I didn't let my mind, go down a rut and get down. And I think I use that as an example because I think that was when I realized I will be successful here, because whatever happens to me, whatever's happening in my life, I am going to approach it with grace, and I'm going to approach it because what matters to me most is pushing my teammates, caring for my teammates, and, and ultimately striving to be the best I can be. And that is not predicated on, what coaches think of you in a moment, or playing time, or anything like that. And I think that was when I truly realized that, I dictate my own success here by my mentality and by how I choose to view situations, and how I choose to basically just view when I get knocked down or when my back's up against the wall. One thing Kelly always said was, I can't guarantee anything, but I can guarantee that we'll be in the fight. And that was always something that I kind of kept with me was, I'm never out of the fight. And even when my back's up against the wall, I'm never out of the fight.
Where do you see lacrosse going, for women's lacrosse especially, in the next 10 years? Where do you see women's lacrosse in 10 years? And then best case scenario of that, if you had unlimited resources to help get there and plant the seed in 1 year, what would you do? And what do you think you would do to help get to that best case scenario 10 years down the line if you had 1 year to work with unlimited resources?
I think I would want the sport on big networks. That's what I would do. I would find ways to get the sport so that it could, be shown to just higher number of people on, the ESPNs of the world, the Foxes of the world. I just feel like if this sport is in the homes of people, when they're even the casual, channel scroller is going to stop and watch this sport. And I think, that is really the next step. It's getting more collegiate games and more professional games out there for people to watch, so that, they can, it's not about, understanding what the game is like. It's seeing the athleticism on display that, these players are playing with right now. And, I'm not a huge hockey fan. I understand it, but I don't know every single rule that's in hockey, and I turn it on and it's just the athleticism, how fast it is it's intriguing. And I think that lacrosse has that same effect. If I had, unlimited resources, that's where I'd start. I think that that's probably the most important thing, as far as just getting the views and the eyes on the game. As far as lacrosse in 10 years, I think that what the professional leagues and the direction that college lacrosse is going, both men's and women's, is just, it's growing at a rate, and I don't even necessarily mean by numbers, I just mean skill wise. Like, I'm seeing kids do things that like some college players can't do, and they're like 12 years old on the women's and men's side, and it's unreal. And I think even in our time, it's Northwestern won 7 national championships, and then and Maryland won a ton, and then JMU pops up, and then you have like the Stony Brooks, and you have these schools that are seemingly like coming out of nowhere, and are playing at an insane high level. And it really is a testament to the sport. Colorado, the USCs, Stanford, just these non-traditional area schools that are just, getting better at such a fast rate. And it's making the landscape of college lacrosse just so much more competitive, which naturally is just, feeds into itself. And then that also helps with, attracting fans and attracting people that are going to watch. And I just think that how fast the skill development and just how fast teams and programs are getting better, the standard is raising for sure. And it's trickling down to the youth. And I think all of the grassroots programs and initiatives and just time that the professional leagues and all of the players are putting in is, I think that's a huge, I think that just the knowledge of, how to get better at shooting and the accessibility, the online platforms that exist now. just to teach, because I think when we were younger, we didn't have our high school coaches and just, parents, they were reading out of like how to teach lacrosse, like handbooks that were written like 20 years ago. So I think that it's just the accessibility of information, especially with social media and also things like that, is just feeding into how fast the game is growing, and just the skill development of these young players that are going to make the next generation of collegiate lacrosse and professional lacrosse just in a whole nother stratosphere from what it is now.
Is there like a, I guess, social media account that you follow, maybe you extract from the most value from, whether it's lacrosse or just sort of life in general? Is there any sort of accounts that you love to follow?
Yeah, I really enjoy Deemer Class's account, and just how, as far as from a lacrosse perspective, I feel like he's just great at just breaking down if you don't open your eyes to see the little subtle things, like it's so easy to miss, and he's great at identifying those things and then coming up with drills that mirror that exact situation on the field. And I love that. That's something that I've always tried to do, whether it's with wall ball, making wall ball more dynamic, identifying situations on the field that happen, whether it's in transition or in settled offense, and kind of being able to sculpt that into a drill you can do, especially during this time in quarantine, a drill you can do in like a 5x5 radius. So I think he's just so good at that. And as far as just general accounts, like you saw my account, I love CrossFit. Yeah. I love it's given me kind of what just competing in sports gave me. Like I kind of said before, it's such a microcosm of life, and within 10-20 minute workout, you are like you see your demons, like you are literally forced to push through mental barriers. And I just am I love it so much. And I follow a lot of people like that. I don't know if you guys ever watched the CrossFit Games, but Matt Frazier, he's, now he's won fittest man on earth for the last, I think, 4 years. So he's someone that I love to follow, because he's just, an absolute beast in his daily preparation. And he doesn't, by any means, he's not one of those people that shares everything, but when he talks, you listen type thing. And just generally people in that community, I think that it's been cool to follow them, because I think just their discipline that they put into not only their training, but just everyday life, the things that they sacrifice to be able to do what they do, is really inspiring, and, definitely makes you want to do more.
Right. Did you get into CrossFit just kind of like as like benefit, just to like kind of help benefit lacrosse, and then that you just kind of pick that up and kind of fall in love with it and become more passionate just from trying to help lacrosse? And then kind of similarly, now that you've kind of transitioned out of obviously still playing professionally, but obviously like this summer, like you guys aren't going to be playing this summer, unfortunately, and obviously just getting into a coaching role now more, how have your kind of goals evolved a little bit, and kind of where do they tie in? Is the CrossFit piece of it just like really fulfilling for you in life, or like are you like working towards anything? Like what do your goals kind of look like these days now, and how have they kind of evolved?
Yeah, well, just the first part of your question, I got into it. I was already doing CrossFit-y type workouts, just like really high intensity. It was like for a while, my friend Kara Mupo, she started going to I was already doing these workouts. She was too. And then she kind of started going to a CrossFit gym. I wasn't really like, how everyone kind of used CrossFit. Like you're like, what is this? This seems very weird and culty. But so I was really hesitant at first. I was like, I don't need to be a part of this like CrossFit gym. Like I just enjoy pushing myself. That's all. Yeah. So I was super hesitant at first, and then she got into it and she started sending me her workouts, and there was like a leaderboard for her, that she would, whatever the workout was, whether it was like, as many rounds as you could in a certain allotted time, or as many reps as you could in a certain amount of time, whatever it was, she started, doing them, getting her score, and then she'd put it in the leaderboard thing, and she'd kind of see where she fell. She was like, you should try this. You should try the workout that I did. So I was like, okay. So I would do it, and then naturally I'd send it and be like, what place did I come in? Like, where am I at? And she would tell me. And so I was kind of like living through her gym, and it was like I started following it a bit more, and I started realizing these like crazy movements that they would do that like were kind of gymnastic-y and just so out of my comfort zone. And I think that that's something I was kind of looking for, and still have learned to really embrace, is I'm just like obsessed with trying things that just make me, whether it's uncomfortable or like I just feel like I'm so bad at, and just trying to get better at them. And I felt like that became an outlet for me to like constantly challenge myself in a way that like I really didn't think would ever be in the cards, like doing those gymnastics movements and things like that. So I started it to improve my, fitness and stay in good physical shape. But it kind of turned into also like such an opportunity to just push myself outside of my comfort zone, not only with like, maxing out your heart rate whenever, but also just doing these things that you're like, I'm not supposed to be able to do this. Like, I'm a lacrosse player. I shouldn't be able to handstand walk 20 yards, and kind of being like, no, I'm not going to put myself in a box. I can do this. So kind of just having another thing to attack and push you out of your comfort zone. And then I eventually joined one, and just like everyone always talks about when they're in a CrossFit gym, is it is so fun, and you're in a community, and not being on a team anymore, that you don't get to, push yourself next to people all the time. I kind of was realizing like, geez, I'm like doing this by myself. I'm literally like pushing myself to the limit by myself in this like rec gym. And this would be a lot more fun with other people, just like a team, just like when you have your teammates. And now those teammates are sometimes in their 50s and killing it, and sometimes older and absolutely killing it. It's very humbling to see that, but nonetheless, you're choosing to suffer, and you're putting that suffering on yourself with a group of people that is really fun and people that really enjoy it. And I never hear a single person complain when they're in there, and that's kind of what I've always been about, and the environment I want to put myself in and surround myself with those people. So I've just absolutely fallen in love with it. And, it's a fun thing to do. Yes, to answer kind of the latter part of your question, I had been doing it just for fun. And now I'm starting to kind of set my sights on competing in, a competition, whether it's in Chicago coming up or finding one on Long Island once all of this opens up. I was going to compete in one, and it ended up getting canceled because of all this. But when I get the opportunity, I'd love to compete and be humbled by some people that have been doing this for a long time. But yeah, it's super fun just to kind of feel that competitive fire again, and to be able to compete in like an event. There's not many things where you can get that like game day feeling in your stomach. And like you guys, even if with this pandemic, if it wasn't going on, we'd only get like 5 games in the season. So, and then obviously when you coach, you have that, but it is different. So it is cool to kind of be out there putting it on the line, and, being able to compete again and win or lose.
Anything you're outside of just eyeing getting into competition with CrossFit, anything else you got your eyes on that you're kind of interested in experimenting with or trying to implement into your life? Anything you kind of want to try coming up?
I mean, besides that, I'd say right now, just I want to continue to push myself as a coach, and just, absolute, like, my girls that are on my team are just, they're everything to me, and I want them to reach their goals. And I finally know what it feels like when my other assistant coaches that, work with Kelly, and how Kelly feels just like how badly you want it for them. So, besides my hobby of CrossFit and besides, lacrosse and being, my heart was broken when our season was canceled, but I know that they will be able to play again for the pro league, and I couldn't be more excited for that. And obviously to win that championship would be definitely, it's a huge goal of mine and a huge goal of our teams. We're very close. We still talk all the time during this pandemic. But besides that, my sights are just eyes forward for this upcoming season with Northwestern, and just really giving everything I have to those girls and to those people that get to come back and have that extra year because this all happened.
Yeah.
And also, working for those people that they got last year taken away from them. That's really where all of my focus is right now.
What do you do to try to improve as a coach? Like, are you studying other coaches? Are you just trying to just watch girls play more often? Are you trying to kind of network and ask some people that you kind of look up to or anything like that? Or just from a coach's perspective, how do you get better as a coach, do you think, besides just obviously showing up to practice every day and giving everything you got?
Yeah. I think, like I said, when you're a player, it's easy to kind of identify maybe technically where you may have gone wrong. It's okay, I need to do more shooting or I need to do more dodging or something. But as a coach, I think that identifying, just ways that, maybe areas where I lacked confidence in, whether it was sharing or maybe I wasn't listening great, and just finding areas like that where I can improve. And, part of improving is realizing, okay, I didn't, measure up to what I wanted to be in this instance, and how can I get better at that? So it's kind of, it's been during this time, it's been a lot of reflecting on this past year and even the year prior, and, what can I do more to help these girls have a positive experience individually. And I think something that's huge is that I've been thinking a lot about is just, how special each individual player is, from what makes them tick and what motivates and inspires each and every individual. And I think that that's something I've really been trying to dive into, besides, the watching film and, putting out content for our team to be able to practice on their own. Besides that stuff, it's really, I can use this time to really get to know these girls more as people. And, they're getting time with their family. I want to know more about what their families are like. What are their siblings like? How have their siblings had an influence on them? Maybe one of them has a brother that's had an influence like my brother has. And then that person that maybe you didn't naturally have that great connection with, you can really get to know them on a whole nother level, because that's all we really have right now is talking with each other and getting to know each other and inspiring each other. So I'm kind of just trying to find ways to continue to inspire them. But, people don't really care about your vision or, how much you know or what you know until they know how much you care. And that's something I've really been trying to dive into, is because it's easy to not show you care when all you can do is communicate through a call or a text or a Zoom call. It's just like being in a long distance relationship, right? If you don't care and you don't show that you care through putting in the effort, that is sometimes annoying when you're you don't feel like being on your phone or something. Ultimately, you have to show people that you care, and you have to, once again, going back to that, don't let what you can't do get in the way of what you can. This is a huge opportunity to kind of, may not be getting those physical touches with these people, but you can still make connections, and finding ways to do that is, I think, the tallest task of a coach right now, and finding ways to continue to inspire and also be inspired by your players.
Would you say that's your biggest change from the the times of quarantine and Corona, is that you say that's like your biggest positive takeaway from these times so far? Is just how, like, the importance of that, and were you doing that as much before?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you do it before, like when you're with people, you know, you're obviously conversing and you're learning more about them, but I think that it's pushed me in a different way. You know, I'm definitely someone that I'd rather connect in person with you. I really treasure just quality time with people. And when I say quality time, I wouldn't put a call or a text or a Zoom at the top of that list. Like I am a very, you know, in person. I want to, you know, converse with you there. So I just think, and that's, you know, like anyone, but I think that has been the challenge is, okay, so making those connections and reaching out to those people and making it organic and, you know, truly showing that you care and you're not just, you know, checking in to check in and, you know, check off a box. It's an opportunity to get to know these girls and ask questions that, you know, maybe you didn't think of before because things were normal and like you didn't, you know, have the time to do it.
What else? I'm just looking at your Instagram. You looks like you're pretty into music and outside of things and with lacrosse and CrossFit and stuff like that. Is that really like the biggest thing that you like to do to unwind? And how have you kind of found like that creativity and just probably challenging yourself at the same time? How's that relate to the things we've been talking about? But what's the big value that you get out of that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I've always kind of had a little bit of like a creative mind like that. I think I remember a specific instance when I was younger. My dad's sitting right here, so I don't know if he'll even remember this, but I was like, I was standing at our front door and it was a glass door. And I remember I was waiting for the bus to arrive. And I remember singing, like I would always sing, you know, in the shower. And I just remember singing at the front door about like feeling like I was trapped in a box and I was so young. And I was not singing a song that I heard. Like, I remember I was singing a song I was like writing in my head, which is so weird. But I remember doing that. I remember my dad being like, Shell, like, do you actually feel that way? And I was like, no, you know, like I was like so confused, but I always just kind of had these very like deep thoughts. And you know, people always kind of said I was older than I was. And I kind of always just felt things. I felt like a little differently than my friends did. Or, you know, it just expressed it differently. And I always just kind of felt like I thought a lot, you know, like I had a lot of thoughts and I always was kind of very aware, even when I was really young. So it wasn't until I was in college where I really allowed myself to kind of start expressing myself in that way. I think when I was in high school, I felt like I needed to be one thing. Like I felt like I was the athlete. Like I needed to be an athlete. I was lacrosse and soccer player, and that was what I needed to be. I needed to be the tough girl, you know, that showed no weakness and that was always mentally, you know, tough, locked in, like always that kind of thing. And that was kind of what I just took on in high school. And even like in those first couple of years of college, like I was still just like, that's what I needed to be in order to be successful. And then it wasn't until like my sophomore year, where you spoke to Lauren. She is unreal at music. She's an unbelievable singer. She is an unbelievable, she learned guitar that year. She taught herself along with this girl, Spring Sanders, who played defense for us in Northwestern. So they were just like, Spring was teaching Lauren guitar and I was kind of just there. I would like listen in and was like super quiet and awkward. And then eventually I was just like, I feel like I should be learning this too. So I went and picked up a guitar and just started teaching myself on YouTube. And with that, I kind of started singing the songs that I would teach myself. And then from there, once I kind of learned the chords and stuff, I started writing. And I don't think that was something that I like just learned or started doing when I was that age. I think it was something I started doing. I started doing it, but I think it was something that was inside of me for a very long time. And I didn't necessarily let it out until I realized that, oh my gosh, you can be really tough and you can be really mentally strong and, just, a beast on the field. And then when you leave the field, you can be something else too. So it was really like my sophomore year. I'd say it was like a huge turning point for me in understanding and realizing that, I can be a ton of things and you don't need to be one thing or the other. You can be a ton of things and they all in a way play a role with, enhancing the other aspects of your life.
Was it just seeing your friends kind of experimenting with it that kind of like pushed you over the edge and like be like, all right, like I feel this inside me, like I'm just gonna try it. Like, was it like your friends that took you that like kind of pushed you to do it, or like once you kind of got that push, you just know right away that like you were doing the right stuff?
It was definitely them
inside you before that.
Sorry, what did you say? You cut out for a sec.
I said because you like said that you kind of knew that it's inside you before that, but obviously you kind of didn't let it out for a while. Did you just need the push from your friends to kind of them to take the leap and kind of be open to doing that stuff? Or
yeah, I think that like when I say it was inside me, I think like through high school, like I didn't really like I was always into poetry and things like that, but I think I just when I saw how quickly Lauren was learning and just her ability to, take what she was feeling and make it into something, I just thought that was the coolest thing. And I think I always had like a lot of these like feelings and things inside of me. And I, in some ways, like sport was my way to like not like escape them. Like I almost would use sport as an outlet to not only escape, but like, like I said before, training and, pushing yourself is like a microcosm of life. And I think I use that as an avenue to express myself. So I had that in the practice setting, but I felt like once I would leave the practice setting and, I had these thoughts and anxieties and different things, like I didn't really have a way to channel it. And I think that the way she was able to channel just the things she was feeling and make it into something that I thought was like just the most beautiful thing ever, it gave me the confidence to try it out. And like I said, when they laid the foundation of being able to understand that you can be the ass on the field and, a tough leader and just an overall strong-minded person, it actually makes you a stronger minded person to be able to express those things and connect with people like that off the field in a very different way. So it just kind of gave me the confidence to at least try it out. And then from there, I just absolutely fell in love. And I think I reconnected with my childhood self along the way.
That's awesome. Connor, should we start wrapping up here, Connor?
Yeah, I guess we'll wrap it up. This has all been awesome stuff.
Billboard?
Billboard. Yeah,
so if you could, last question here. I mean, this is like, this has been awesome. And I mean, time's been flying by here. But closing question, if you had a billboard for billions of people to see, this is a question taken from Tim Ferriss. If you could put anything on a billboard for billions of people to see every day, what would you put on that billboard?
Oh, wow. That's so weird. So my dad's sitting right over here, and he said the first thing that came to my mind too. And I mean, this was I'll just tell you that my knee-jerk reaction, my first thought that came to my mind was be kind. I think that when you're kind, you know, to yourself, to other people, amazing things can happen. And, you know, that's really weird that my dad just said that, because that was the first thing that came to my mind. And that's kind of what I hope for, not only right now in the world, but, you know, that's what I hope for everyone, is that they can be kind to themselves and that we can all be kind to each other.
Love it.
The apple does not fall far from the tree.
Yeah, that was weird.
Great minds think alike.
That was great, though. No, but I appreciate it, Shelby. That was awesome stuff just to hear you speak on a bunch of different topics. So huge for us, and obviously kids going to be listening. So that was awesome.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it. I don't even know what time it is right now. Time did fly.
Time to fly.
Well, thank you guys so much. If there's anything else too I can help you guys with going forward or anything, don't hesitate to reach out.
For sure. Yeah, this is awesome. I really appreciate it. And
yeah, definitely.
How do we anything we didn't ask you think we could have asked you that would have been good?
No, you guys asked great questions.
All right.
Appreciate that. I will touch base again, because I do want to hear more about the neurology and proprioception you talked about with the work.
Okay.
That was
cool.
Interesting. So,
all right.
But nonetheless, thanks again, and we will definitely be talking soon. So
yeah,
awesome. Thanks, guys. Yeah, be in touch.
All right.
Bye.
See you, Shelby.
Bye.